right, happy Tuesday, Judah. We're back in business here at noon on Tuesday, June 2nd.
Absolutely. Coming to everybody here at Real Estate Hackers. We are excited to bring you guys great content and great guests. We've got a really great guest coming up this Thursday, just confirmed again this morning. Thursday at noon, we're having Eric Brewer from CR Property Group and Integrity Home Buyers. We had him on a panel about a month or so ago with a bunch of other people and wanted to get him back on individually just to talk, because he is somebody who is just a really excellent marketer, really great at delegating, really great at setting up the marketing systems and things like that. And that's one of the things that we've been talking about last week and this week. So Josh, I have been doing some other projects and getting some other stuff knocked out this morning. I haven't even taken a break or slowed down enough to read the news this morning and read the different news aggregators that I read to pay attention to what's going on. Other than, COVID, other than shutdown, other than, Black Lives Matter and peaceful versus non-peaceful protests, is there anything else of note to mention in the real estate and/or housing world?
That's not enough. That's not enough. Every major city in the country is getting burned down. We've got protesters over a totally legitimate, for a totally legitimate reason, protesting all over the country. We have a virus that has shut down and decimated the greatest economy in the world. And what's the other one?
Well, here's my favorite. Here's my phone's been blowing up because apparently, because I occasionally vote for lower taxes, I love Donald Trump in some people's mind. And apparently Donald Trump did something religious yesterday that wasn't religious enough. And some of my 100% non-religious friends have decided to be the arbiter of what should or shouldn't be allowed for religious discussions. And they're calling me, saying to me that I should be calling out Donald Trump for not being religious enough. Like the people who last week yelled at me for being too preachy are now telling me Donald Trump isn't being authentic in his Christianity.
I don't think
2020 is a great year, isn't it, man?
At all. Like I am so I'm so over politics. Like everybody, whatever side you're on, the other side is 100% wrong, and you are 100% right. Right. We'll just put it out. We'll put it out there.
Well, I think the problem is, there's a lot of people who have been posting, if you don't like me, just go ahead and unfriend right now. Mm-hmm. I see my conservative friends doing that and my liberal friends doing that. Like that is the very definition of not being able to sit down and have a conversation with people.
That's the biggest problem. I mean, so I was reading something. This is months ago, right? But this is before even COVID. I was reading this article that was analyzing personality types and how the different personality types gravitate to different political movements and political ideologies. Well, people that run businesses typically are more conservative, right? Whereas visionaries and real entrepreneurs are typically much more liberal.
Yep. 100%.
If you don't have both of those, you don't have companies, you don't have innovation, you don't have great things happening. If you don't have the artistic, and beauty and, and innovation on that side, like you don't, like the world, you might produce a lot of widgets, but they're not going to be really nice, And so like we need each other, like both sides of the political spectrum, we need each other. Yeah. So let's stop fighting. Let's find some common ground and let's just burn down all of the government.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson talks an awful lot about that, and the differences in. There's a lot of people who have been doing primary research, and Jordan Peterson and some others have done the extrapolation and the application of that, and it's really interesting and actually kind of scary how well your personality type maps and your personality traits map with how you view the world, what your values are, and then ultimately your political persuasion.
Well, and it's almost like we need each other, and like we were designed this way with different ideologies and different motivations, and like so that we could all integrate with each other and like get the best out of each other instead of just like running off to our different sides. I swear that there is, like, if there's a conspiracy out there, the conspiracy is to divide people as much as possible to keep them isolated and angry.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing that Russia was trying to do. Is Russia was quote unquote meddling in the elections by putting out a whole bunch of hype about anti-pro-gun stuff and also pro-gun stuff, and they were doing they were coming up with accounts and memes and other stuff like that on both sides of very derisive issues like the Second Amendment, abortion, war. Should we be defending and peace issues and stuff like that, and all these very divisive issues. They knew that if they fomented that hatred and rage, it would work for them.
What right? And I mean, what's the best way to stay in power for anybody? It's to get people from paying attention to what really matters and what's really happening, and focus on one specific thing that they can get all fired up about, and and disregard everything else. So, all right. So before putting anybody else to sleep here, let's jump into some content, and before we have people tearing down our show. So, this show is brought to you every day by Hard Money Bankers and Slate House Group. I'm owner and operator here at Hard Money Bankers of Central Pennsylvania. We do private investment loans for real estate investors. If you are somebody that is looking for funding on your next project, give me a call or shoot me an email. We can do same day approval on your project and same day underwriting. Pull some comps, get some basic information about you and what you're trying to do, and we can fund within 24 hours of approval. It's a really straightforward and easy process. Judah, why don't you talk a little bit about Slate House Group, and then let's jump into some banging content.
Well, I think one of the greatest things about Slate House Group is just that we've got so much access to so much data. So we just awarded 2 awards within our company. We've got about 35 property managers, and we awarded highest economic occupancy rate. So we of those 35 portfolios, who had the highest economic occupancy rate, and that was a guy by the name of Stewart. And we also looked at who had the best month-over-month improvement of their occupancy rate, and really a newer employee with us. She's a property manager out of New Jersey. She took over a really rough portfolio and has really done an amazing job turning it around. So there's a whole lot of things on the back end that if you track, get improved, and economic occupancy is one of those things. And we track it by property manager a bunch of different ways, and are always looking to improve it. Just one glimpse behind the curtain of how Slate House Group uses technology and tracking ability and data to improve our numbers, and thereby improve the numbers of all of the owners that we work with.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So guys, we're going to jump into, we've been talking about marketing. And we've been talking about some specifics, some high-level stuff. Now we're to the point, like, your phone's ringing. Now what? And today what we're going to talk about is transitioning those phone calls into real prospects and real sellers. And I'm going to pull up some slides here. If you guys have been watching this show and you really have been enjoying that, I want to ask you to please, share this, like our show, share it with your friends. And if you get involved in the conversation, every single day we give away a thank you to the best comment. And I got a book that came out in January. It's called Property Hackers. And if you have the best comment of the day, I'm going to reach out to you, get your mailing address, and send you a book. So without further ado, let's jump in here to transitioning prospects to sellers. Let's see what we got here. Jonah, you just keep giving us such great feedback as we go along here. Jonah has actually, I'm just going to put this up here. What gets measured gets accomplished. I mean, Peter Drucker is a business coach or a business writer and consultant. He has a saying very similar here. It says, "What gets measured gets managed," and it's totally true. You know, we've got
and what gets managed gets improved. What gets
Yeah.
measured gets managed. What gets managed gets improved.
There you go. There you go. So you know, it's important. We talked yesterday about measuring anything. You know, whether it's the number of leads, whether it's whatever. You got to start somewhere. As these calls start coming in, knowing how to talk to a seller, knowing what to say, when to say it, what not to say, is a really important part of having some success. So let's jump in here. I broke this down into 6 steps. Like nothing crazy. Really, you know, 6 simple categories. The whole point of this call is to get this to do 2 things. Number 1, to see if we might have a deal here. You know, that's the first thing. But the second thing is to determine if there's motivation on the other end of that line, because the motivation oftentimes transitions to a deal. More often than not, the issue that that I see when I get motivated sellers calling me for my marketing is that, you know, sometimes it's a problem property, but oftentimes it's a problem situation and that the seller's going through that leads to selling for, you know, below market value. And that's really what we're looking for.
Yeah, 100%. You're always looking for motivated sellers. You're not just looking for potential sellers. And you know, if right away you want your goal to be trying to book and set appointments and get out there and fail forward, perfectly fine. Just understand also that you want to come back to these 6 steps. Keep these 6 steps in front of you kind of as you're having that phone conversation, because it's a good way to flow through that phone call. Also, as you look at there's a lot of scripts for dealing with motivated sellers online. I love talking about reading scripts. You know, I would say Ben Affleck hasn't said a word that hasn't been scripted by somebody else. The reason George Clooney is seen as the ladies' man and suave and debonair and everything like that is because he reads scripts that somebody else wrote. He internalizes them. He makes them his own. He memorizes those scripts. But people who think reading scripts makes you sound robotic just have not memorized the script enough.
Well, that's the other thing. You should not be reading this.
Right.
There are a couple lines that are going to matter throughout your script, and there's only a few. Everything else, it's about flow. You know, I have a script that, and if you want it, you can email me. I'm happy to send it to you. But I would recommend, like, take some notes about these slides. And there are going to be some times when you need to say the words exactly right, but most of the time, it's about following the process and keeping the idea behind it. So introduction, right? Obviously say hello. You know, I learned a long time ago when I was sending out mailings, I hardly ever will answer the phone with a company name. It's a lot of times I'm just going, hello, can I help you? You know, and half the time it throws off the person at the other end of the phone. Like they expect to hear, like, you know, Josh's Home Buying Company or whatever the heck, you know, the company name is. And so they're going, is this a home buying place? I got a postcard in the mail? Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, my name's Josh. Thanks for calling. We are, you know, I'm a home buyer. Who am I speaking with? You know, and then they start talking. Oh, my name's Tom Miller or whatever. So I'll write that down. Great. At this point in the conversation, a lot of scripts that you'll get online will tell you to start getting all their information, you know, get their name and phone number and get their email address and all that stuff. At this point, I mean, that's a little premature. That's, in fact, way premature.
Yes.
You might want to get a phone number if it's blocked on caller ID, right? If it's a blocked number, you might want to say, hey, look, Tom, and Judah, before, you know, in case we get disconnected, is this the best number to reach you, you know, or what's the best number to reach you? Great. All right. So, you know, from there, I like to start with just telling them what I do. And this kind of gives me an opportunity to plant some seeds along the way. So, like, yeah, you know, my wife and I, we have a local home buying company. We purchase a handful of properties every year, either as rental properties or to fix and flip. And sometimes they're single family houses, sometimes they're apartment buildings, and even some commercial spaces and things like that. We often work with real estate agents, but find that most of the time we're able to provide better service to a seller and have a much easier, transaction if we're working directly with an individual. Now, that already answered a question that they were going to have before they even had to ask, right? That's an important part of the conversation that you should really know going in here, is that try to anticipate the questions that they're going to ask, especially the hard ones.
Now, let's talk about that, because I want people to notice how Josh talked about his company: light, airy, breezy, casual.
Yeah. Yep.
You do not want to say that we are a home buying corporation that buys properties with the intent to fix them up and beautify neighborhoods and put them back on the market at above the price that we paid for them, so that we can profit from them to help our bottom line and also contribute to charities that we find meaningful and substantial in the area. That sounds way too stuffed shirt. Hey, we buy a handful of properties a year based on a number of different criteria. I don't know whether we'd be interested in yours or not. Maybe, probably. I'd love to continue this conversation and find out. Sometimes we buy multifamilies. Sometimes we buy single families. Sometimes we keep them as rentals, and sometimes we buy them, fix them up, and then turn around and resell them. It just all kinds of works based on what's best for the seller, what our current inventory and pipeline looks like, and really about the house itself. So, that being said, why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about the house? So, you also want to find transition pieces from what you're talking about to the next thing. So that was Josh's discussion of who his company is and what they do was a minute and a half. Mine was probably under a minute. Like, you want to be under 3 minutes, more than 45 seconds, under 3 minutes on just telling them who you are and what you do.
Part of this conversation too, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, Judah, but do you ever have people that just want to call and scream at you? I mean, I have. By introducing myself and doing that in a really quick way, even before I start asking them any questions, it makes the conversation so much lighter. And if they just wanted to be ticked off and yell at me for sending them a postcard or knocking on the door, whatever, a lot of the times it'll diffuse that situation. So this, I might ask them, hey, do you have a house that you'd like to sell? Or, what are you calling me for?
Right.
Put it back on them. Now we're going to get into the property information.
Right.
Now, this looks like it's about the property information. The questions look like they're about the property. And we got to get some basics here. But guess what? I can go on Zillow and I can go on the MLS and get almost all of the information that I need. And unless that house had a fire last week, I can even see a picture of the place on Google Maps without leaving my house and get a pretty good idea of condition and a lot about that property. But what we're looking for here is we start digging for motivation, right? That's what's happening here.
Right.
I'm going to get the basic information. What's the address of the house? 123 Main Street. Great. And, what kind of property is that? Is that a single family? And if it's a single family, is it attached to a bunch of other houses or one other house? Or is this, a freestanding property? Oh, it's freestanding. Now, is it colonial, or is this like a Cape Cod, or, what's the scenario? How many bedrooms and bathrooms? I like to ask bedrooms and bathrooms because a lot of times the information on the MLS or public records isn't quite right. Maybe they added a bedroom or a bathroom in the basement. It helps.
90% of the time, it's 90% accurate, and it's just a good way to say, "Hey, listen, I'm looking at some information here. It says it's a 3-bedroom house. Is that correct?" And the other thing that I like to ask at this point that's not part of, Zillow data. Hey, Josh, what's the heat source there of your property?
Yeah,
Guess what people start telling me? That it's, that whether there's, and then I also ask if there's AC or not. They tell me how old it is. They tell me whether it works or not. They tell me, if it makes funny sounds when it comes on. They tell me if they just put it in last year and who did the work. You know what I mean? They tell me that, they went with, they just put in a new system and they thought about changing from baseboard hot water to ductwork, but they knew the ductwork was going to cost extra money and they didn't want to do that. And they knew they weren't planning on being there long, or they're really upset because they wanted to stay in this house for forever and they spent extra money on it. And so, like, if they say, I just did XYZ work and like they were planning on staying, and for some reason they're motivated now to sell the house, they're really motivated to sell the house.
And why? So one thing that I don't know. One thing I never used to do is ask about condition, because I always figured, I'm going to probably have to gut the house anyway. Well, what I found is that when I started asking people, when I would ask open-ended questions, how's the roof? Oh, the roof is fine. It's not leaking. But if you ask specific questions like, when was the last time you replaced the roof?
Right.
All of a sudden they're going, wait a minute, it's 2020 and I replaced that thing in 1995 when my daughter was graduating from high school, and it was $4,000 then, and it's like, oh, okay, so that roof is 25 years old. It's time for a replacement. It's time for a new one. And they might not say it out loud, but it's a little check mark that they get in the back of their head. Okay, I guess it does need replaced. When was the last time you replaced the air conditioning and windows and roofing and flooring and all that stuff? And then, you started talking about them telling you about replacing this stuff. I got a question that I asked if they did any upgrades or additions or improvements in the last 10 years. This, like, I try to lead them into that question so that they can start telling me about the property. And you can kind of get an idea of their emotional attachment to the property, because that's a big part of this. How emotionally attached are they to this place, or have they already checked out and moved out in their mind?
Right. 100%.
Now you also want to start asking about what repairs the place needs. Like, look, I told you I'm either going to resell this thing or I'm going to rent it out. What would I need to do to make this like new condition? What repairs are needed? The last, like, this is my, if I had somebody that didn't want to be on the phone, the number one question I want to ask them is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a brand new house and 1 being a burned out shell, how would you rate your property?
Right.
Almost everybody is a 6, 7, or 8.
Right.
Almost everybody. If they tell you it's a 9 or a 10, they are so emotionally attached to that place that no matter what it looks like, it's going to be really hard to buy it. If they tell you it's a 2, 3, 4, 5, hey, they know that place needs some work. Check motivation. All right. So now ask them why they're selling. Why are you selling? Well, you sent me a postcard. I want to sell. Okay, move on. No, this is the most important question that you have to get answered.
Right.
Most of the time, they're going to give you a one-word answer.
Right.
Judah, have you ever had a seller that just kind of roadblocks you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So and that's why, listen, you want to ask this question 2 or 3 times at 2 or 3 ways, even in the initial phone conversation. Yep. And you might even want to ask somebody, hey, Josh, so what would cause you to pursue options other than a traditional real estate agent?
Well, you've got to ask that. You have to.
And then no matter what they say, well, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Well, what I hear you saying is, and then you rephrase it and repeat it and put it into your words and put it back to them. I understand how that must be a difficult situation. And you can also say things like, you know what, Josh, divorce is rough. I feel for you, man. And there's a lot of people who go through divorce, unfortunately, and I wish that almost 50% of the business that I did wasn't directly tied to divorce. So these are situations that I've handled before, and throughout this process, anything I could do to make it easier and more streamlined for you, I'm interested in that. So so you want to, You want to empathize. You don't want to lie. If it's your first deal, don't say, you've done a bunch of divorce deals before. But as you've done more of these deals, be it whatever type of deal you're doing in whatever neighborhood, you will notice similarities. And
Yeah.
without betraying confidence and without sounding cliche or cheesy, somebody talking about their motivation is a way that you can get them to dig deeper into their motivation. And it's also a way that you can build rapport and trust with them.
So absolutely. If you have somebody that's really closed-mouthed,
right,
you've got, and they're not going to provide a lot of information. A nice little technique to get somebody to open up by accident. So let's say Judith tells me, yeah, I've been thinking about selling for the last 2 or 3 years. You've been thinking about selling for the last 2 or 3 years? You just repeat the same thing that he just said to me as a question, and all of a sudden he says, well, yeah, I've been thinking about moving down to North Carolina. I just really love it down there, and every summer I go down there with my kids, and it's such a great time. And you know what? I've just had enough of it up here. I'm ready to move down to North Carolina and just restart. It's a slower way of life. Now all of a sudden he is checked out. He really is ready to go. And for 2 or 3 years, he's been thinking about this. And now I'm going to provide an opportunity for him to live his dream. Right? I mean, these are little things that we're seeing. Okay, now I know what he's really.
So this is an important distinction to make here. People think, the reason their motivation is that the house isn't in good shape. Their motivation is that they know that they owe too much on it, or their motivation is they're a month or two behind in payments. No, that's the reason they're calling you instead of calling a realtor. Their motivation is, I want to get to North Carolina. Maybe the motivation is tied to the condition of the property. Maybe the motivation is tied to some money need or something else like that. But that is a mistake to assume. Most times people are just fine living in their squalor that they're in. Most times people are just okay with their nagging financial problems. There's something that is causing them to want to do something different, and you've got to find out what it is. So don't think that the motivation is the house or the motivation is the financial problems. Might be, but actually probably isn't. There's something else going on.
And if it hasn't come up by the time you're ready to transition, you've got to ask. So why haven't you listed the place with an agent? I mean, Judy, you told me that for the last 2 or 3 years you've been thinking about selling. Why don't you list with an agent? And if the houses are in nice shape and nice neighborhoods, almost every time they don't want anybody to see the inside of their house. They're either ashamed of it or they just don't want to deal with the traffic. That's a great situation. All right. Next, motivation again. In a perfect world, Judah, when are you thinking about selling?
Right.
Well, there's 3 steps here. I'm going to ask broadly. When are you thinking about selling? When would you like the house sold? And then when do you want the money? Because a lot of times they think they're the same question. They're not the same question. And this allows you to drop a little bit of information in here. And you say, well, I bet you wouldn't realize this, but did you know that if you sell with an agent, oftentimes it can be 3 to 6 months from the time you list your house till the time you actually get the money. And they're going, wait a minute, I thought this is a great housing market. I thought I'd have my money by, the end of June. Well, it just doesn't work like that, and then if they give you a timeline, you're following up with, hey, I want to have my cash by June 13th. Well, what happens after June 13th? What makes you, what's going on with that date? It's what's the next part? You got to tease it out and hear what they're not saying as much as what they are. And then explain what you can offer. A big part of my marketing is not saying I can close, I'm all cash, close quickly. That's one option. Some people don't want all cash, close quickly. They need 30 to 45 days to get their crap together and move out of their house.
Some people want to know, what is it, June 1st? Some people want to move out on August 1st. Yeah. Not before, not after. Yeah. They need the house sold, and they need to. So Josh, I
Yep.
probably could list my house with a realtor and make a little bit more money, but I need to be out on August 1st, and I can't list it now and hope that it sells and hope that it closes. Or, but I also can't but I also can't sell too soon.
Right.
Some
Right.
some people they've got what seems like an urgency on a timeline, but going with somebody else who doesn't let them know that, hey, listen, I can close in as little as 10 days, but like whatever works for you is what we can do. So let's work out a timeline that makes sense, because oftentimes people don't like how rigid realtor timelines are. When you expose it to the market, if you get a ready, willing, and able buyer, you're now on the buyer's timeline, not your timeline. So
Right.
let's work out between you and me, Josh, what a timeline looks like to you. In an ideal world, what would you like to do?
This is also a good time if you're thinking about subject to properties. If you're thinking about buying subject to, it's a great way to introduce the idea of different types of financing based on the needs of the buyer. I like to talk about, hey, look, we customize every plan for an individual seller because everybody's different, everybody's unique, and everyone loves customization. I mean, like, even though most of these deals are going to be as fast as you can get them done, the 1 or 2% that aren't, and even the ones that are really fast, they don't want to feel like they're being rushed out the door.
You're right. You say customization, but then you really, try and get it done as quick as possible, because you can't steal in slow motion. Right. So you still definitely want to keep the transaction and the deal moving fast and moving forward. However, you let them know that customization is an option, so that they feel better and so that they feel more comfortable moving forward with you.
That's right. That's exactly right. All right. So we got out of the timeline. Now we're going to talk about price, right? The goal here is to get a number, and it's really important to understand that the first one who offers a number in the negotiation
loses
the negotiation. It's not even the loss, but like at this point, if I throw out there that I want to pay $50,000 for this $200,000 house, the conversation is over. We're done. And I haven't built up enough credibility, enough relationship here. Likewise, just because they say they went $200,000 for their $200,000 house doesn't mean that's what I have to pay. It just is a start to the conversation. You don't have to cut them off. The goal here is to get some banter back and forth, to find out some flexibility and open the negotiation, and then transition that into a face-to-face meeting.
Right.
So in this case, if they give you a reasonable offer, schedule an appointment. Like if they're within a few $1,000s, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, schedule the appointment. If they're unreasonable, ask some follow-up questions. So how'd you come up with that number? Is that the best you can do? I guarantee the answer is not going to be yes if you ask that question. It's always
right. I always, no matter what they say. I always say, if I could pay cash and settle quickly, what's the least you could accept and still be happy? I don't say it that fast. We're short on time. We're already 33 minutes into this call. So I say that a little bit more casually. But my first question is, if I could pay all cash and settle quickly, what's the least you could accept and still be happy?
Right.
Whatever they say, within half a second of it, I say, is that the best you can do?
Right. And just
right away, is that the best you can do? And
all
then whenever they come back if they say no, I say, okay, so, so what is the best, that you can do? If I could pay all cash and settle quickly, what's the best you could do? If they say it is the best that they can do, I say, Josh, so you're telling me if I don't pay you $200,000 for your house that we can't do business?
Well, maybe 195, and the bottom line here is that you just have to get the conversation going. Open the door. Oh, I just lost Judah. All right, so I'm going to keep going. All right, so next step here is, if they still won't give you a number, this is a huge deal. If they still won't give you a number, you're back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Right.
Sorry about that. I tried to exit the chats. And my phone is a little rough here. Yeah, absolutely. So you just keep on going. You just keep on going back and forth. You just keep on having the conversation. And here's the deal. Practice negotiating for pie at the diner.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd like to. I see you sell pie here by the by the $2 per slice. How much for the whole pie?
Right.
Whatever they say. Is that the best you can do?
And okay, so now if let's say they just won't give you a number, they
Right.
will not. They are mum to the point. Be ridiculous.
Right.
Okay, Judah, are you talking about? All right, so if I give you a $10,000 offer, is that kind of the ballpark you're looking? You're looking at 10 million. Well, 10 million, huh? That's a lot of money. Well, no kidding. So look, what kind of ballpark are we talking here?
Right.
Most of the time, that will get me to a number, and if it still doesn't, well, how much do you want to walk away with? That's a better question. How much do you want to walk away with? I don't know. I got to walk away with 50,000. And what do you owe? I don't know. Another 50. Okay, well now we're talking. Tease that question out. I don't like to get into talking about liens and mortgage balances and all that stuff at this point, but it'll at least give you an idea. And
By the way, if anybody ever pushes back and says, "Well, I'm not telling you what I owe," Josh, listen, I appreciate that, buddy. I know you want to get to North Carolina. I'm busy. You're busy. I can go to a courthouse, figure out when you took out the mortgage, figure out what the rates were at the time, and get within $3,000 of your mortgage balance in 45 seconds.
Right.
Can you save me 45 seconds worth of research and just tell me roughly what you owe on your mortgage right now?
Right. That's it.
It's a matter of public record, who you took out your loan with, and when you did it, and how much the mortgage was. I don't know what the term was. I don't know what the rate is. I don't know what your payment is. I don't know your current balance, but I can make some 95% accurate guesses. So, yeah. I mean, like, cool. You don't need to tell me exactly, and maybe you're a month behind or something like that. I don't know, but I'm just trying to spitball some numbers here together to make sure this makes sense for you and me. Roughly, what do you owe on your mortgage?
If all else fails, schedule an appointment to go see the house.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how many times I've gone out on appointments where I was almost 100% sure that it wasn't going to work. And by the end of the conversation, I'm getting that, you know what? Yeah, you're right. I will take your offer. It's amazing. So, all right. Last but not least, once you've gone through it all, you got to set the tone for the face-to-face. Right?
I completely agree. And here's the deal why you always set the appointment. Unless you already are doing 2 to 3 appointments a day and you're actually, some occasionally wasting time on appointments, and you feel like you've learned everything you can learn and you feel like you've practiced everything you need to practice. See, I love going out and selling hard asses because it's great practice. It's right. Like running with one of those running parachutes on your back. When the running parachute isn't there, it makes it a whole lot easier.
Exactly. It just gets you better. You either get a yes or you get a better. That's it.
Right.
So when you're at the end, you've got an appointment, confirm the date and time, and then review what's going to happen. Look, when I get out there, we're going to sit down and we're going to have a talk. I want to make sure we're the right option for you, and vice versa, that this is something that we want to move forward with. From there, I'm going to take a look at the house. And if I'm still interested, I'll make you a written offer. From there, confirm that all of the parties will be there for the appointment. So because you're telling them that you're going to make a written offer, is there anybody else involved with the sale? Do you have a spouse, a brother, a sister, a relative, a friend that you would like to be there during? If so, let's make sure that they're there, because I know you're going to have a lot of questions for me. I want to be able to answer them properly and make sure that you're well informed and can make a good decision. Lastly, we talked about getting the basics as far as information.
Hold on. You do a mini close there, a trial close, or a, what do you call that? I haven't had enough coffee yet today. Where you say, Josh, listen, I'm going to make you, blah, 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 going to make you a written offer. The only thing I'm asking is, that you give me a yes or a no at that time when I give you. Or do you think it'll be all right for you? Would it be okay with you if I made you an offer at that point, and then if it's great, we can move forward? If not, hey, just tell me that you're not interested in my offer, Josh. You can flush it, no big deal. But so we need to have the people there just to be respectful of your time and my time. Anybody who's going to be involved in who's on the deed and has an ownership interest in the property is going to be there.
Fair. That's fair. I like to do that while I'm at the property. It's kind of a fine line. For me, it's at least a fine line. I don't like to prepare them for a hard close. You know what I mean? And at the same time, you got to make sure everybody's there. Otherwise, you're dead in the water. That's
right.
it. So to this point, we've gotten their name. We have their phone number on because of their caller ID. We got the property information. You got to get their email here. If you don't have it, you're going to need it. So ask them for it so you can send them a confirmation of everything you talked about, the scheduled appointment, what's going to happen, all that. And obviously, you're going to use it to follow up. You know, the last thing I do is just ask them if there's any questions that I didn't cover.
I just always ask somebody what's the best email to reach you on, because we've all got personal emails and work emails, and some of us even have 2 or 3 work emails. Hey, Jess, I got a flyer kind of summarizing what we talked about here today, and I'm just gonna I'm gonna email you my contact information just so you have it and things like that. What's the best email for you?
Yeah, exactly.
And just, just you keep it casual, you keep it breezy. Hey, what would be the best email for you, Josh?
Exactly. Any of the questions that you ask.
You don't say, what's your email? Like, that catches somebody off guard. Well, what's my email? Do I want to give him my email? Is he going to spam me? Is he going to follow up? Hey, Josh, what I'd like to do after this phone conversation is just email you kind of a summary of what we talked about. I also have a flyer that just kind of goes into a little bit more depth of who we are. Maybe you guys have a flyer, maybe you don't, or maybe you have a credibility kit that you're not going to call a credibility kit, by the way. Rule number 1 of a credibility kit is don't call it a credibility kit. So, hey, listen, I've got this thing that I don't call a credibility kit that I'm going to send over to you, Josh. It's in PDF format. I'll get that in your hands as well. And also my contact information. What's the best email address to send that to?
You just got to
you're going to have to use my wife's email at work. That's the best one. That's the one we check. I've got this other Yahoo account that I don't really check very much, blah, 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 blah. But, it's just like you just find out more information. They start sharing information about who they are. And the longer, you'd be surprised how long what's your email address answer is. And the longer each of these answers are, the more comfortable they are talking to you. The more their conscious mind is telling their subconscious mind, we should trust this person. It's why we're giving them all this information.
That's right. All right. So
we're going to have any comments. Is that what's going on? Are there comments going on?
You just keep going. You just keep going. All right. We're going to call it a day. We're at 42 minutes today. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We'll be back here tomorrow. Again, like and share this video. Invite your friends. We'll be here at noon tomorrow. And we got Eric Brewer from Integrity Home Buyer on Thursday. All right. Have a good day, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you, everybody.